It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 422. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace.
Hi.
Kodra.
Greetings.
Tam.
Babies hate time zone changes. Wow.
And Thalen.
Yes, they do.
Not a fan either.
You have a very tiny dictator that rules your life.
Baby says, I do this thing at this time. The position of the sun has no bearing.
You know what else gets grumpy? Cats. Cats don't understand time zone changes either.
Yes, this is true.
I expected that the 6-hour flight was going to be the hard part. It was not.
Babies like to be on a schedule, and then suddenly their world has shifted around them.
Yep.
The sun is betraying them.
So I've been playing a lot of ARPGs, surprising to no one that's listened to this show for any period of time, or ever.
What? Bell likes ARPGs?
So one of the games that I have revisited at various points is Last Epoch, because it was a game that sounded very good on paper and looked very good on paper, but was not very good for a very, very long time. That has changed. It is a really good game now.
Yeah, I just started jumping in very recently, and wow, it's just very smooth and enjoyable so far. For as picky as I can be about ARPGs, I don't have a lot of things that I can complain about with this game, other than when you teleport back to town, your loot disappears.
Yeah, and like that's one thing that kind of bugs me, and another thing that kind of bugs me is like if you're lost and you can't figure out where you need to go and you zone into a new area, it like gives fog of war again for the map. Like you can't dip in and out of areas kind of like you can in PoE or even, Diablo 3, you can kind of dip in and out of areas. So that's a thing I hope they fix at some point, but it's this weird experience of they are very cognizant of all of the Diablo games and have clearly played a lot of Path of Exile and then have made decisions based on those things to try and create a superset of some of the better features.
And I appreciate that, at least so far, some of the things that they think are better features are things I agree with. And I'm really happy playing this game so far. I really appreciate having somewhat deterministic crafting, but still having crafting. It's nice.
Yeah, the crafting thing is huge.
I've just started dipping my toes into it, but it's like, oh, this is fun, and it makes sense, and it doesn't seem like it's going to take me 30 years to master this, but it still has some random elements to it. Like, I'm good with this.
Yeah, so their crafting system is based on you collecting these shards out in the world, and the shards are for a specific attribute. So there is some RNG in the system in that, like, you have to have gotten one of these things to drop if you want to add a stat to an item. There's also items have like crafting potential on them, and that basically tells you how many things you can do with it before it's basically locked. But, so there's RNG there, but if you want to add a stat to an item and there's an open prefix or suffix, you just add that one stat to the item. So there's
nice.
There's not really RNG in, I'm going to have to spend a stack of currency and hope and pray that I got the outcome I wanted, and oops, I bricked my item.
That's much nicer.
I mean, there are gambling options that are like this item, this thing impacts your item unpredictably. But those
you're
are
opting into that.
right, exactly.
Right.
That, you're opting into it. Like, I'm going to use this somewhat rare resource that could have really cool outcomes, or it could also brick my item. I am basically going into this with an open mind.
Right.
Yeah.
I am giving my consent to whatever happens here. No, I will live with my choices.
And honestly, I think that's great because like sometimes you get an item, you're just like, I can't use this, but
Maybe I'll YOLO
maybe I'll
and
use one of these. It's like this item is trash, but might be great if it happened to be completely different than it is. Hey, here's your maybe it's completely different than it is option. Like that works.
Right. This item is a good base, but it doesn't have any of the stats I need on it. So let's try and fix it.
This is one of the games that I have tried to play. This week has been me trying to play new games on the Steam Deck remotely. I definitely thought it was broken when I first started because I went to it was like, oh, I'll make a new character. Cool. And I see this just like textureless gray, sort of shadowed thing where if I click in various places, I'll suddenly see PFX around the like outline, the like gray box outline of a character. I was like, oh, I don't think it's supposed to look like that. But once I actually got going, I've only played like 20 minutes of it. But I can tell you I have not yet rolled my eyes at the story, which...
That's a plus.
That's incredibly impressive, quite frankly.
Like,
there's not much there, but...
Isn't the story time travel nonsense? Like
it is time travel nonsense.
It is a roll your eyes at this story. Apparently it takes more than 20 minutes.
It apparently takes more than 20 minutes. It did not take more than 20 minutes for either Diablo 3 or Path of Exile.
Diablo 3 takes about 30 seconds.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah. Like,
Path of Exile isn't a lot better.
Even though it's some timey-wimey nonsense, it's not bad. Like, I mean, it is kind of interesting because it gives them excuse to let you visit areas in different circumstances.
I mean, I so far have just seen it as an excuse to occasionally fight some dinosaurs and then go back to whatever I was doing.
Yeah, like fighting dinosaurs is cool. Yeah. So I mean, like the story is basically like you have access to this item called the Epoch that allows you to shift back and forth between not time zones, eras, time periods. Yeah. So there's like, I think 5 time periods, and they represent different eras of the land, and there will be time, like I wish they did this more often, but there will be times where like, oops, I'm in a time and I can't unlock this for some reason. So I've got to go to an earlier time when the controls to this bridge existed and then extend it in the past and it extends it in the future. Yeah, so there's some of that stuff going on, and it's kind of cool the first time you see it, but it's also real, I don't know, like it's kind of ham-fisted at the same time.
You know how I normally say that thing about stories about time travel versus stories with time travel?
Yeah.
This is starting to feel like a story with time travel.
Yeah.
Even though it's supposed to be the other thing.
I think it's supposed to be the other thing, yeah. Like, it's going to remind you of Chrono Trigger at times. And not necessarily in a good way, but, I mean, like, it's not bad, and you're fighting not demons, and it's fine.
It's fine. It's all fine.
Yeah, like, it's an ARPG. Like, go into it expecting an ARPG story. You've got 5 base classes, and each one of those can specialize in ultimately at the end of like at some point they'll all have 3 subspecializations. A lot of them only have 2.
Have 3 now, I think.
I think Rogue only has 2 and Druid only has 2.
I know Druid has 3 now.
Druid has 3 now.
Druid has 3 now? Okay.
Rogue looked like it had. Oh,
One's not unlocked yet.
Oh, okay.
Like
I
they all
didn't
say they
figure
have
out the
three.
iconography.
They've got
Gotcha.
them designed. They just don't have all of them in the game.
Is Warlock in yet? Because if that's in, then I think the Rogue one's the only one that's missing.
I thought there were at least 2 when I looked. I was creating a bunch of characters today.
Warlock
to
is
try
not
out
in.
different ones.
No, Warlock is not in.
I just rolled Wizard because Wizard, but
Yeah.
And there's a wizard subclass that looks like it's maybe Spellbladey.
It is literally called the Spellblade.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely into that if that's a real thing.
I mean, that's in, so you can try that out. I think so far
Can I respec if I hate my life?
So respecking is not awful, but also at the same time, it's not Diablo 3 where you can just do it on a whim. So there's
or like ESO where you pay a bit to do it.
Yeah, so there's 2 things that you have. You have passive tree and you have skills. So at specific levels, you're gonna choose a skill that you're gonna start building talents out for. And that one is kind of annoying because your option is you basically lose a level in that skill and it unspecs a talent point from that skill. So the worst case scenario there is you just have to re-level that skill. But skills seem to get catch-up XP, so you can change it. You just may have to like re-level that ability if you want to change your mind later. And it's not the end of the world, but it's like the skill talent points. They tweak the way that the skill works. So like I've been playing a necromancer, and various talent points in like the skeletal warrior tree give you additional skeletons to summon. So like if I had to respec out of that, I would just have fewer pets for a while until I catch up.
And I really appreciate this game does not give you a whole lot of room for active skills. So you do have to sort of choose carefully. But then once you do, then you can pick these skill trees for the skills that you're using and really customize how they work and how they interact with each other. Because some of them, there's some skills that I was looking around at where it's like, oh, this is basically just a blink or a teleport skill. Like, why would I want to specialize in this tree? But then when you look at it, it actually will buff other skills or give extra defenses or additional things to go along with it. So it's like it actually seems to be worthwhile for any of the skills that you're using.
I really like systems where it's like you get an ability and then you like grow into that ability and continue to morph it and upgrade it and so forth. Like I've always really enjoyed that.
Well, and a lot of them are
I really love those too.
Like, here's an ability, and by default it's a bleed, but maybe you don't want it to bleed. Maybe you'd rather it poison.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it's a fireball and you'd rather it be an ice ball. Like, and you can go down a path that's like, okay, I want to veer off in this direction and really focus on this kind of damage or this specific play pattern. One of the cool things that they added in on, it's not in the live game. I've been playing on the multiplayer test realm. So skeletal mages is kind of a fixture with necros. Like that's just a thing that most necro classes eventually have is skeletal mages. The problem with necro is like they went real heavy into the pets, and as a result, all of your keybinds are pets.
I mean, I'm definitely here for this. I don't know what you're complaining about.
No,
great.
so the problem is necros by default don't have room for a movement ability. So what they did instead is in the skeletal mage tree, you can spec into it so that your skeletal mages teleport you around, just like the default movement ability in for Necros is this thing where you basically break down your body and move your blood and then reassemble your body. So when you spec into the skeletal mages, it essentially gives you a teleporting version of that same kind of ability that's just now built into the key that you use to summon your skeletal mages. So there's some quality of life stuff like that built into the game to where like they realize, oh, you're going to need all 5 of your abilities for something else. So we're going to give you a way to spec into some quality of life into one of your other abilities.
I was looking at the druid stuff, and I did notice that pet skills have an alternate ability with you the pet summoned.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you need that keybind for something.
Right. Exactly. So they'll give you some quality of life on those alternate abilities. And like the coolest thing is if you go really far into this skeletal mage thing is like one of the problems with pet classes in general is you're using a movement ability and now your pets can't keep up with you. So there's this, I think it's like Undead Army or Undead Cavalry or something like that, where if you put enough points in it, it teleports you and 9 of your pets to a location. So you just boop your pets along with you so that you're never without your shield. So the other spec thing is passive points, and that one is just a gold sink. Like you go to town and you spend some gold and you respec.
Like, while my preference is free and open respecs, I understand that there is a non-zero value to having a little bit of friction there, just for like player toxicity and game health reasons. It just needs to not actively offend me.
Yeah, I mean this
Seems
isn't
reasonable
bad
so far.
The only thing that annoys me is there's no apply changes option when you're speccing. Like if you click on a thing, it puts the point. So just be aware there's no I want to see what I can buy with these points.
No, there's no confirm button.
Yeah,
That is a core problem as far as I'm concerned. Is like there should always be a
Are you
Are you sure you want to?
Yeah. Are
Yeah.
you sure you want to spend your points?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it's
if
not
I can't
bad
just
if
remove that point, then I
Yep.
need something to ask me.
yeah, like it's not bad in like Diablo 3 when you can just fiddle with stuff all day long and it doesn't really matter. But yeah, no. Like,
Even Path of Exile gets this one.
People get really mad when they're like, I'm constantly having to say yes, I do actually want to do that thing. But when you don't have it, you need it.
I've gotten
One extra click
to
deal.
level 55 and I've seen a bit of its in game, and it seems like they have a thing kind of like maps, but instead of you have to hope that you can get the things to drop, it's just like a path that you follow, and you like everything is like doing a node unlocks the connecting nodes and you just spread out from there.
I like it. It sounds a little bit like Torchlight Infinite, maybe.
And it sounds like by default you can only do the one monolith. Like they call them echoes. The nodes in the monoliths are called echoes, and you can only do them once until you've finished the monolith, and then you can redo the entire monolith. So like you don't chain run maps the way that you would in Path of Exile, but you're trying to unlock your way through it, and at the end of the monolith, there's a boss fight, and you unlock a blessing, which is it seems like it's kind of like the Pantheon in Path of Exile, where you get some kind of permanent buff applied to your character out of a pool of a bunch of different buffs. It sounds like when you've beat the boss, you get to choose one of 3 buffs, and that's the one you get.
Choices are good.
I've also seen the arena mode, which is kind of like it takes a key to unlock the arena, but if you get far enough in the arena, it guarantees another key drop, so you can basically sustain it after a point, where you fight a bunch of waves of things, and then based on how far you made it, there's awards granted based on that. So, and I think the other game mode is dungeons, and they take keys as well, but I've already gotten a couple keys drop.
I am excited to try out all of these things.
What really piqued my interest is the fact that in March they're dropping the multiplayer patch that opens it up to where you can play with friends. And I somehow just recently got into the multiplayer beta, so I've been playing on that. It seems to be in a good space.
So, but this is still like early access, is what that tells me.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, like, it's been in early access for several years now.
It's definitely in a really playable space. Like, it's a good state, I think, right now, especially once the multiplayer goes in, if it's not too buggy when that happens. I don't know. I also just appreciate that I can bind the movement the way that I like without having to like yell at anyone or lose an ability slot or anything else stupid. I can just play with the controls that work for me, and that makes me really happy.
That's a big plus. More of these
Yeah.
games should do that.
Yeah, I mean, like, the only negative about this game is there's no way to do move and attack at the same time. Like, you will have a movement key and you will have attacks, and you can't do an attack and move. So, I mean, that's part of what felt so weird early on. But again, I've gotten used to not doing that kind of control scheme anyway, so it doesn't really matter for me.
Oh, is that why I started playing it and was like, oh wow, this feels really good immediately? I mean, I booted up on the Steam Deck and it was like, minus some weirdness with like, oh, I have to type on the keyboard.
Oh, did controller support go in? Because that was a big argument we had over them at
Yeah,
PAX.
it got controller support
Yeah,
at
it
some
just
point
works on
recently.
it doesn't. It's not just has controller support. It just works.
Yeah. It's
Nice.
I have heard controller works extremely well, and because you only ever have a movement key and 5 abilities, you have plenty of room for keybinds. So weird system that the game has. So, do you remember charms from Diablo 2?
Like things you just held in your inventory for
The
bonuses.
Yes.
things you just held in your inventory for bonuses.
Yeah.
So this game
Those are
has
dumb.
this game has charms, but they give you a specific charms grid that you put your charms in.
Okay, that's
yeah,
much
much
less
better.
dumb.
Yeah, all right. So it's
So
gear by a different name. Got it.
yeah, so like it's a grid, and as you level up, you unlock more space in the grid, so that you can have more of these things, but then you're basically playing Tetris with it to try and fit them in the way you want them to.
It is just like the Sanctum relics in Path of Exile right now.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that is not a bad system.
Yeah, so it's funny. It's like there's so many places in this game where you could say, okay, they liked a system, but they learned from that system. Because charms were horrible. Like
Charms were dumb.
Like, I get the purpose of charms, but also
They're dumb in Monster Hunter too.
You didn't have any inventory space. Another thing that like this game really has going for it is loot filters. So like a lot of these games have loot filters, but this one has a really good loot filter creation system inside the game.
Okay.
I'm shocked.
Like, you just go to this window and fiddle with your loot filter openly and, like, change whatever you want with it. And you can see what the styling's going to look like in game. And so, like, if you want to start by downloading somebody's loot filter, that's fine. You can paste it in and work with it. And then, say you're, like, for a while I was looking for a good gladiator-based chest, to do dumb things with trying to chance my way into a brass dome. But like while I was doing that, I really just wanted the ability to easily say, okay, warn me of all the things you're already warning me, but also highlight this one base. And then when I get one, I want to get rid of it really easy so I don't ever have to see it again. And the filter's easy that you could just like add one in real quick. And, like I fiddled with it quite a bit. And it just works. It's great that it's in game and you don't have to like edit the XML outside a game or anything like that. It's just all in game. There right now the conundrum that's happening is what their trade system's going to look like. There are some people from Path of Exile that really want it to be open trade like Path of Exile. They don't seem like they really want that.
Looks like
that's a decision. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's not the same game. It doesn't have to be the same game.
Right. And it looks like from the recent patch notes that it's looking very Diablo 3-esque. Like if you were in a group when a thing happened, then you can share it around. But otherwise, maybe not. Yeah. And I approve.
Yeah. There's just, you can drop a better loot.
I kind of wish that games had a guild SSF, basically, instead of just like solo self-found. Basically an option not to have trade league, but everybody that's in a guild could share resources.
Yeah.
Because like in some games it's called Guild Iron Man, where you can't interact with anybody outside of the guild, but everybody in the guild can craft for each other and that sort of stuff. But I wish that was a mode that existed in more of these games, because like that's really the way that I would prefer to play, where you can share within your guild members.
Yeah, but I do appreciate, as interesting as the openness of the class and builds in Path of Exile can be, I appreciate a game that just has classes. And that also means that while you are playing a specific class, loot of that type is mostly the loot you're going to see. Just having, it may still be complete garbage, but at least it's the appropriate kind of garbage.
Yes.
One of the nice things is kind of back behind the scenes, every item that drops has a specific class in mind. So you can go into the loot filters and have it highlight all the acolyte items or all the rogue items or all the mage items, to kind of help filter out things quicker on the loot side. One of the interesting things that this has been a while since I heard this, but it was on a live stream with a bunch of the devs talking to some streamer. And I guess right now everything is gender locked, but that's not necessarily a done deal for the future. They're contemplating going back in and adding other models for the classes,
which is something they should do.
But for now, they've left it alone because they have a lot of other things to work on, and it's a very, very small team.
I appreciate that the two classes that I'm most likely to play align with the gender that I would want to play, but I would be really annoyed if that weren't the case and there wasn't any plan to fix it.
Oh, yeah.
At some point, they're putting in a version of seasons. They're going to call them cycles.
Fitting.
But it sounds like there will be temporary seasonal things going on, but they don't plan on permanently scope creeping the game in the way that Path of Exile does.
Path of Exile does that because it's a free-to-play game and and that's how it maintains retention.
Yeah, and on some, like, I'm kind of torn on that because my favorite game modes in Path of Exile are ones that weren't in at launch and were specific seasonal mechanics, or league mechanics. So like I can see both sides of that. I would love for them to put an MTX shop in because sometimes my character looks real dumb. They've got an appearance tab
until they actually finish the game.
There's a cosmetic tab, but you just can't do anything with it yet.
Right, exactly. My real hope is that they would go with an appearance unlock system. But yeah, like my character looks real dumb right now. just awful, and that makes me sad. But I'm surrounded by an army of skeletons that I'm not even really paying attention to what my character looks like anyway. Yeah, it's impressive how far they've come. So I'm looking forward to the launch of multiplayer in March.
I love to see these things sort of develop and become great.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me happy that they've learned a lot of lessons, and it seems like they've taken the right lessons away.
I don't think we've significantly talked about this game since we saw it at PAX South, which was in 2017.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a really long time since we had talked about this at all. It had been a while since I had attempted. Like, I knew they were working on multiplayer, and I wanted to really check it out when it got closer to that. So, Thalen, you had mentioned that you had gotten further in Lotro and wanted to talk about that.
Yeah. So I got back into Lotro because of, mostly because of Tam trying it out, and have been pushing through it. So when I left off years ago, I had just entered Western Gondor. Like, that had been recently released at that time. So that'll give you an idea of how long it's been since I played. Something like 7 years. I don't know. A while. I have since made it to Minas Tirith, gained 20 levels in the process, reached the point where I've decided I needed to turn off XP gain for a little while so I don't just out-level every single quest long before I get to it. And I realized, I still kind of love this game. Like, it's Lord of the Rings, and it's full of lore, and you get to interact with all these characters. Like, I made it to Minas Tirith and made it up to the to the top of the seven circles, and there was Pippin in his guard armor because he's an idiot, standing guard, and we had a little picnic, and he told me about how he did a stupid again and picked up the Palantir, and Gandalf called him a fool a couple of times because that's what happens, things like that. Got to see Aragorn, sweep through the city with an army of the dead, and he's in the process of sailing up the river on the Corsairs boats right now. So we'll get to that pretty soon, I think. But yeah, like, on the whole, it's just it remains a really fun game. That said, I think I figured out why the mounted combat, the war steeds, feel even worse to me now than I remember them feeling. Because I remember them being, a little janky back in the day, but they weren't awful. Like, they had a really wide turning radius, and whatever. But I realized when War Steeds came out, and I was playing Lord of the Rings back then, I had not yet played Guild Wars 2. Specifically, I had not yet played Guild Wars 2 Path of Fire and seen this done really well. Because basically, War Steeds feel like I'm on a roller beetle with no special abilities, like no turbo, no drift capability, and it steers worse. And also, the
That's
game
impressive.
has latency issues.
Steering worse than a roller beetle is not a thing to aspire to.
It really is not. No. So yeah, it makes me even more impressed that the Guild Wars 2 devs managed to put in these mounts and have them actually feel good. Like, even the roller beetle feels good when you're using it for roller beetle stuff and you've gotten the hang of it. And I think part of that is that Guild Wars 2 does not have the latency problems that Lord of the Rings often does.
Lotro believes in server-side movement, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And mostly it's fine.
Mostly.
But boy, did I forget about rubber banding. And wow.
Yeah.
When it's not fine, it's not fine.
Yeah, and when you jump on a war steed and get going real fast, that's when it starts to really be not fine.
I didn't know what rubber banding really was until I played Champions, a game that lets you move rather quickly, but still believes in server-side movement.
Yeah, those two just don't get along. You can't do.
City Heroes is the one that I remember the most rubber banding in.
Yeah,
it's telling to me the maximum mounts, like base mount speed in Lotro is 78%. And like, coming from, I mean, if you played WoW, you're like 78%. All right, you're terrible ass mount. but that's what they cap at.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. It turns out, it's yeah. But that said, like apart from the war steeds, like the game feels remarkably good for such an old game. Like I'm honestly I'm really impressed. Like I'm super impressed that Minas Tirith is as large and full of NPCs and believable and feels right. Like I'm amazed that they pulled that off. Like on the client, on the code base that this is built upon. Because
Yeah, like
wow,
it's a game that wants you. It really, really, really wants you to stop and smell the roses
it does.
by force if necessary. But
Yes.
but it's really interesting to see. It is coming from a place where modern level design sensibilities in MMOs were not like modern level design sensibilities in MMOs drive you to content. It is about driving you to content, not
Yeah.
about creating places. And like I remember when we played Rift was the first time I really, really noticed the shift away from we are creating places to all of the level design in this game is expressly created to funnel you to content.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
You're right.
I didn't really have the vocabulary to articulate it at the time.
I remember you specifically saying that you didn't like Rift because the cities didn't feel like cities to you.
Yes. And that was sort of how it manifest. Like that was like the thing that I could articulate, and that really. But it was one of the reasons why my favorite part of Rift were the like hidden jumping puzzles, the places that were like you don't have to go here and there's something here for you because it
Yeah.
felt so like there was so little of that. And it's interesting to see Lotro, which is so far on the other side, where I frequently will like stop and look up and look around and be like, wow, this is a really beautiful place. Like I emerged from Moria. I'm actually really bummed because I'm out of town for 3 weeks, so I can't play. I don't have anything to play it on.
Yeah, I'm guessing Lotro does not play on the Steam Deck well.
I haven't yet tried.
I
mean,
found
it's
some
on Steam.
videos showing that people had done it, but like I've not tried it either.
Yeah.
Seems
Like maybe
unlikely.
I'll try it. We'll see. But I just can't imagine it working well. But like I emerged from Moria, where I was pretty impressed at how they took. I mean, like I said the other on the previous show, like congrats, they made me think mega dungeons can be cool,
Mhm.
which I wouldn't have said was possible. But then I emerge into Lorien,
Yeah, Lorien is gorgeous.
and it was just like, oh, I mean, part of it is your pacing is so good that after being underground for a while, and it's not like it's an oppressive underground, it is in some places, but it's also beautiful and fascinating and interesting. You emerge into this like golden autumn forest, and it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous from a game that's like 15 years old now.
Yeah.
Like that is an accomplishment, and a lot of it is just like it is made to feel like a place and to like make you believe that you're wandering through a world,
Mhm.
not a series of content points.
Yeah, and
Uh,
they've managed to continue that. Like, after Lorien, you end up in Mirkwood, which is, again, somewhat dark and impressive, but in a this is a giant forest way. And you're in southern Mirkwood mostly, so it's not like pitch black, nothing but spiders, thank goodness.
yeah,
And then you're out in the plains of Rohan, and then western Rohan, where for a little bit there's snow for story reasons, and then like devastation, and then you come into western Gondor, which is honestly quite pleasant,
it's like Greece.
apart from the dead that are trailing along behind Aragorn, making trouble, but mostly it's real nice. And then you start heading east towards Mordor, and yeah, like that going back and forth just often enough to keep you that when you hit a new feel, like you're just starting to get a little tired of the old feel,
Yeah.
and that sense of relief. And yeah, it works really well.
I mean, and to be very frank, this level design gets in the way of you doing content often.
Oh, yes.
Like, the map is garbage. And, like, navigating... I dropped some cash to get one of their supporter packs, which came with a bunch of the, like, mithril coins that you can use for various things, but mostly I use them to instant teleport to quest turn-ins because, there've been a few times where I'm just like, no, I'm not going to run all the way back there. That's not happening. But it reminds me of playing FF15, where sometimes I would catch myself just like letting Gladio drive and sitting in the back seat, just looking around because it was gorgeous.
Just watching the scenery. Yeah. Like there have definitely been times when I've, taken a ride from the stable master, and Swift travel usually isn't that much more expensive than just the normal ride.
Oh,
It's,
yeah.
like a few silver more. But I take the normal ride just because,
It's like,
it's a nice view.
Get some nice view and chill out for a bit. It's not like a constant content funnel.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, like, it's still a theme park, though, right? Like, it's not...
Yeah.
Because it feels like there needs to be, like, at least a little bit more, like, a happy medium, rather than just constantly putting you on a ride versus, like, having an undirected experience.
Yeah, it's a really, really hard balance to hit. And I think it is an increasingly hard balance to hit as we, continue to develop and play more of these games, because, like, we're pickier. Once upon a time, UO or EverQuest was the, I remember being stunned by the treetop villages in EverQuest. Like, oh, this is visually the coolest thing I've seen in ever.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, yeah, sometimes you fell off and died and lost a level and you're like, haha, but, like, no, that's unacceptable. Stop.
I think maybe for me, the happy medium is something like Guild Wars 2, where the world has very much a sense of place. Like, there's lots of places especially the old world, where you can go and there's no good reason for you to go there. But it's like fully fleshed out and there's interesting things there. But at the same time, like, there's a constant clip of objectives for you to spend time at and things trying to draw your attention to, little micro events going on. But I think, like, that whole sense of place is part of the reason why I loved some of the older dungeons in World of Warcraft. Like,
yes.
Like Dead Mines is still
Yeah,
one of the
that was
best
where I was gonna
dungeons. But also for me, Blackrock Depths.
Yeah, Blackrock Depths was...
I hate that place, but I understand why it is the way it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's an entire city. It's an entire city in a zone.
And you can absolutely get lost down there. And
Many people did.
On multiple occasions.
And it is anathematic to actually doing the content.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, like, but I think the reason why I loved it so much is I loved the big set piece open world dungeons from EverQuest, like Cebalus, for example, or, Upper and Lower Guck. I mean, they were these huge zones that, no one did a front to back clear of them. You went there to a specific location. Like, you were going for, this area.
Yes.
I mean, and that's always bugged me about modern MMO design is I liked places that were places. Like, destinations that were actually, they felt like, like villains do live here. Like, I loved, what was it? The Warrens, which is a dungeon in EverQuest that very few people went to because it was like the beginning of their experimentation with making loot trivial after you were no longer its level. But, you go in there and there was a kitchen in there. There was an armory in there. Like, it was very much, this is an actual place where these kobolds live.
I mean, the one that I think of is, the Estate of Unrest.
Yeah. Yeah.
like it's a big manor house, and yeah, like it's full of dead things, but it's this big house, and it's built out like a house.
Yep.
It's great. But that sort of thing is in complete opposition to the whole go get to the level cap, go get your award. Like it just and that makes me sad.
Exploring zones used to be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of the reason why I like the whole world completion concept within Guild Wars 2.
Yes.
Is there's a reason to do it. You don't
Yeah.
have to. You don't have to do any of it to finish the story, but like, or the dungeons that have multiple paths, like there's a reason to do it, but you don't have to.
Yeah, it's a reward for the thing that I like to do anyway, and just that additional little encouragement to be like, yeah, no, this is a legitimate way to play this game, is what it is saying, and that I appreciate that.
I mean, like people complained about, I don't remember what they're called. I keep wanting to say Fate, but that I don't think that's right. The kill a bajillion of this thing in Lotro to get points. Deeds. I loved Deeds. Everybody hated Deeds. I loved Deeds.
Well, the reason everybody hated Deeds was because
they were required.
Virtues were gated behind them, and you needed specific virtues depending on the class you had chosen.
Yeah.
And for some of those virtues, the deeds you had to do for them were awful.
Now I enjoy them. I like them quite a bit.
Yeah, now deeds just give you get some Lotro points for the deed, and you get experience.
Sometimes a title.
Yeah, and you get some generic experience that goes to whichever virtue you are currently leveling. So you're not having to go after specific deeds to raise, wit or whatever. You just do some deeds, it'll go up. But yeah, I mean, like I've mostly wrapped up like doing stuff in Minas Tirith. A lot of my time in Minas Tirith was spent clicking on all the different plaques for all the statues of kings and for the different stewards and all the places. A, because they were there and clickable, and B, because there were deeds associated with finding them all. I enjoy that. And it led to me, to look closely at some places that I might not otherwise have looked at as much.
I don't know. Like, I kind of halfway assume that the shift in zone design also happened because designing places that players don't necessarily need to go to is probably more expensive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as fidelity goes up, the expense of creating these big spaces goes up exponentially.
Mm.
And so, you don't want to spend effort and art time, your limited art time, making spaces that are purposeless. And you also don't want a bunch of Twitch streamers and YouTube comments and reviews saying, getting from point A to point B sucks. This game would be cool otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so like I commented about this week, but like, Guild Wars 2 has all the home instances, and it is very clear that Queensdale is the first one they built, because none of the other home instances are anywhere near as detailed as Queensdale. Like, and you can kind of tell that I think the Grove was the last one built because it's by far the most Spartan.
I feel like that has more to do with not knowing what to do with the Silvari as far as storyline things go.
Yeah, that's probably part of it too.
They figured it out in the first expansion, right?
Kinda, yeah. They gave them a personality in the first expansion. Anyway, I am happy that games still exist that have senses of place.
Yeah, and I mean, are apparently doing well enough to continue to, get expansions and new content and stuff.
Well, I mean, so. DDO similarly had really great zone design.
Yeah.
Other than the weird big open areas that like mostly didn't have anything in them. That were like
not a game about micro dungeons mostly.
I have no idea what DDO is about anymore. It definitely was
that's
about
fair.
micro dungeons at one point.
It's
that's fair. I have no idea what it's like about right now.
Yeah, I think it still is, but I mean, honestly, I haven't played it since the massive shift to this is now set in the realms. So
right, I haven't either.
Yeah, I don't really know.
The last time I played it, a bunch of us were playing together. I don't remember when that was.
I love DDO's micro dungeons. Those are so
Yeah.
cool. Like the narrator and everything. I mean, it must have been unbelievably expensive to make, but
I thought it was cool back then that like every class had a thing that they were needed to do in a dungeon, and it actually opened up new areas of the dungeon.
yeah.
And like every game that's ever tried something like that never sticks with it. Because even the second Dungeons and Dragons MMO, Neverwinter, did some of that early on and then ceased to do that ever again. Wildstar had that with the professions, where every profession had a thing that they could do. And I don't know, like, Grace, did they continue that through all the dungeons or just the early dungeons?
There was stuff through a good ways, I think. I don't remember if it was in every dungeon.
But again, that probably gets kicked to the side because they don't want to force any one, profession or class or whatever to be in a dungeon.
Well, and I'm guessing there's also an element of players optimize things, and so they decide which is the optimal path, and then okay, we need the classes that unlock that path, and those take up 3 of the slots in our party. So
everybody else GTFO.
Yep.
Players optimizing the fun away.
Yep.
I'm awful about it too. Like if there's an optimal path, I will usually follow it. So I mean, like, I could complain about it, but I'm just as bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know Bluey, but what is Bluey Big Play?
Bluey's Big Play is a theatrical production of Bluey.
With big old puppet Blueys.
Big old puppet Blueys.
Big old puppet the healers.
Yeah, it features puppets for Bluey, Bingo, Chili, and Bandit, and Pat.
Yay, Pat!
There's a scene with Lucky's dad.
Lucky's dad is great.
One of my favorite lines, which is like something along the lines of, "Do you know what shenanigans I get involved? Like, I don't want to get involved in any of your shenanigans." And it's like, why do I keep coming over here? You keep getting me involved. And Bandit's like, just imagine living here, mate.
I'm always impressed by Lucky's willingness to just go along with it.
Lucky's dad,
Lucky's dad, yes. He always he just whatever crazy thing is happening, he's like, okay, I guess this is happening now.
It's definitely the motif of the show is like, whatever, anything crazy happening. The play was really good. We went to see that with our son today. And there was a bunch of families there, and it's a wild and raucous play. I don't know how much I've talked about Bluey. If you aren't watching Bluey, I don't care if you have kids or not. You should watch Bluey.
It's I mean, if you do have kids, then 100% you should be watching Bluey, and your kids should be watching Bluey, and everybody should be watching Bluey. But even if you don't, it's just
it's fun.
It's cute and sweet and fun and goofy and very Australian.
It's very Australian.
The thing that cracks me up about Bluey is it makes me wonder how many kids want random things now because they saw it on Bluey.
Oh, all of them. So many parents on the internet complaining.
Like condensed milk,
Bluey and it was a mistake.
Why would anyone want condensed milk as a treat?
I don't know that they've ever had condensed milk.
Yeah, no.
There's
the Army episode.
The Army episode.
Oh, right.
Why would you not want condensed milk as a treat?
That
coming from somebody who had condensed milk as a treat growing up.
But yeah, so that was the thing. Or but in particular all the games, it's like my son wants to play tickle crabs sometimes. Like, damn it, tickle crabs.
No, tickle crabs. I hate that game because you tickle me. I love it. It's such a quotable show too. But it's interesting how they produced it, and that was kind of the thing I kept there's a risk of uncanny valley when I was going in. I was like, I don't know how this is gonna land, and I feel like they were doing so many things to avoid the uncanny valley here.
Mm-hmm.
So it is big puppets, which they don't necessarily look completely show accurate, but they still look pretty close, like close to what you would imagine a live action like pop out of the cartoon screen. And the entire thing is pre-recorded actually. So like they've got the actual voice actors for all of the characters reading lines. And then the puppeteers are like acting as the lines are getting read.
Right.
So it was a very, very good show. They do a lot of like, let's get the kids going and like, let's encourage people to like, hey, Cheddar Max is on screen, so everyone's gonna dance around and go crazy while Cheddar Max is on stage, right?
Cheddar Max.
Yeah, everyone hates Cheddar Max, right?
I mean, good plan, because I mean they know their audience, their target audience, and they know that children of that age aren't always able to sit still for the full length of a show. So
it's also a pretty short show, is what I would say. It's only like 50 minutes.
Okay.
So Eli was kind of like, oh man, I was ready to go for even more. I was like, yeah, well, it's over, and we had a great time though.
And then you can go home and watch the episode where Aunt Becky shows up.
Aunt Brandy, yeah.
Aunt Brandy, yeah.
There's a moral to the whole story. There's a through line. It was really good, and yes, very sad at points.
Yeah.
It was all about teaching Bluey about how to be a good big sister, and in the background, dealing with the fact that there is trauma between the mom and her sister.
Yeah. They haven't talked in 4 years. But yeah, that's one of the things that you might not expect going in if you start watching Bluey, is every so often there will be an episode that will just punch you in the feels. Hard.
Yeah, definitely is. I mean, it's definitely doing a lot of different, like heavier subject matter as well.
Yeah.
But in a kid-friendly way.
Yes.
In a way that kids might not necessarily fully understand what's going on.
That's cool, because then it sinks in later.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a kid-friendly way that does not become tiresome for adults on repeated viewing. That's the thing that's so impressive. Because kids like to rewatch things repeatedly. I do not know. I could not count how many times my son has watched all of Bluey. And I don't mind, because like they're all great and they're all still funny, and I have not been driven mad by this show. Like, and there are plenty of other shows that will do that when you see them enough.
One of my friends is very scarred from having to watch Caillou.
Oh, yeah. Gosh. I'm so glad my son never got into that one, because it just... Yeah.
I understand, like, I understand that there's a lot of people who are scarred by Caillou, mostly because, like, the kid in it is just terrible.
Yeah.
Like, very obnoxious, and, like, doesn't really learn.
I mean, it's really like Peppa Pig. Like, I can't stand Peppa Pig.
I mean, my problem with Peppa Pig is they all have penises on their heads.
The art style doesn't help.
Like, I mean, that's not what a pig looks like.
Yeah.
That's a penis walking around on a body.
Thanks, Bell.
Sigh.
But yes, there was definitely a moment where I was tearing up after a particular gut punch. And I was like, oh. But yes, definitely interesting. Definitely, like, Bluey's great. I did see somewhere that, like, by most measures, it's now like Australia's #1 cultural export of all time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, my wife told me earlier today, because I, mentioned to her that you guys went to see the big play, and we were talking about it because it is coming here in July, and so we're deciding whether to pay the Ticketmaster markup and go see it. But she mentioned that she had seen something that apparently Bluey is like the number 8 streaming show in America.
I thought it was like even higher than that. I thought it was like and overall. I know on Disney Plus it's like
overall.
Yeah.
And this is by like time watched. So
Wow.
It is 8-minute episodes, and it is the number 8 show over like things that have like 30 or 50-minute episodes.
Yes.
So yeah, I believe this is the biggest. I absolutely believe this is the biggest exporter of Australian culture too, because it is a very, very Australian
It's
show.
very, very Australian.
They did not try to like genericize things to make it, appeal to a wider audience or whatever. No, this is set in Australia. It could be set nowhere else.
It's Christmas time, so it's time to go for a swim.
Yes. You got to watch out for bush chickens.
You bin chickens.
Also bin chickens.
Well, that's right. It was very funny because the play does open up with a bunch of cheeky ibises coming onto the stage and fighting with each other over scraps. Yeah, apparently they are very aggressive, is what my friends who went to Australia recently said.
This is what I have heard. I mean, it's Australia. Everything wants to kill you, so...
Yeah, the bin chickens just want to steal your food.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about Midnight Suns the other day, but there's a Deadpool DLC.
Yeah!
Boy, knowing
You gotta
that
put Deadpool
game,
in everything.
that's a choice.
It's a choice. It's a choice they are making.
Look, Deadpool A is popular. B wants to be more popular and will make sure that he shows up in anything he can.
Of course. Yeah, so Deadpool, like, you basically get a mission, which is some Hydra. Apparently the granddaughter of the Red Skull, or the daughter of the Red Skull. I think it's granddaughter of the Red Skull.
Well, I mean, they might have retconned that since the Red Skull is so old, but Sin is his daughter.
Okay.
In the comics.
I mean, it wouldn't matter because...
And also, she's terrible. She's the worst.
Well, so, and Red Skull has actually, like, reading between the lines, Red Skull has hired Deadpool to retrieve something from Sin.
Sounds about right. They don't get along well.
And so, like, you are there to just mess with Hydra, because, like, obviously you don't want Hydra getting whatever this relic is. But it turns out the idea here is that Sin has enlisted the help of vampires because she is a vampire, unrelated. And this is just perpetually played for jokes. In Marvel, there is a concept of vampires spelled with a Y and with an I.
Mm-hmm.
Blade deals with vampires with an I, primarily.
Yes.
Vampires with a Y are sort of like the mindless zombie vampires that are sort of the cannon fodder. It's incredibly confusing, and it's very obvious that they are taking advantage of the fact that this is not a literary medium to make a bunch of voice acting jokes around Carol Danvers getting upset that vampire and vampire are the same word meaning two different things. But it's very well written. It's got a lot of the trademark Deadpool humor. Like the last line before you recruit him is like, "Look, Ma, I'm gonna be DLC." And then you can ask him, like, what did he mean by DLC? And he can be like, he tells you something that, like, is it the fig leaf in universe justification, and then sort of looks over the protagonist's shoulder at the camera, is like, but you know what it means. He has, in fact, only left one. He has started to leave notes on the super link in which he asks if anyone ever thinks they feel left out, and everyone's like confused, like, who do you mean by they? It's like, they, obviously, the player, the other person nobody's acknowledging here. It's like, and everyone's freaking out because they think that some player has intercepted their communications, and Deadpool's like, it's like, oh my goodness. Everyone treats Deadpool so seriously. Everyone hates Deadpool as well. Like, when Hunter is inviting him to come live at the Abbey, like, everyone is on your comm screaming, stop, no, you're not allowed, he's not allowed here.
No, he's the worst.
Oh, it's great. It's so fun. But yeah, Midnight Suns continues to go pretty well. Like, I have kind of stopped roaming around the Abbey. I've gotten what I wanted out of that, and as soon as I stopped like spending much time interacting with that entire half of the game, it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah, I've played games like that. Like, I know you really want me to do all of this stuff over here, but none of that's fun, so I'm just not going to. Thanks.
Maybe I don't have to scan all these planets for resources. Okay, so tell me more about Hi-Fi Rush.
Oh man, this game has an aesthetic.
Yes, it does.
I don't even really know where to start with it. It's so weird. Like okay, it's a rhythm game. It's a rhythm action combat game.
Sure.
The entire world moves to the beat. So you have a just constant visual reinforcement of the beat, to the point where you can play the game without sound, which is pretty impressive for a rhythm game.
That is.
But it's also like you got light and, you're running around, you got double jump, you got light and heavy attack, you're smashing up robots. It's got a just completely anime unhinged sort of story where you're like getting a robot arm, but your robot arm malfunctions or something. There's an evil RoboCorp. I'm not really sure. You've got a robot cat friend.
Robot cat friend looks great.
But it's really charming. I enjoy running around. I've only played probably an hour of it, so I'm not like super far into it. But it's just so gleeful. Like
Yeah,
your
everything about it just looks so bright and cheerful.
Yeah, like it's bright and cheerful. Your character is a walking disaster. The game makes no bones about your character being a walking disaster, but it's like charmingly walking disaster. It's such a and it's got it has an art style, like I was saying before the show, it has an art style like Persona 5 has an art style.
Mhm.
And it's just leaning all the way into it. And it continues to blow my mind that this is like coming out of a famous for horror game studio.
Yeah, that's nuts. And it just,
Like,
I think it just clicked with me. The thing that I've been trying to think of, that the visuals from this make me think of, because I knew there was something. Does anybody else remember the short-lived cartoon Megas XLR?
Yes.
It makes me think a little of that, like just the visuals and the feel. I don't know, and just the over the top absurdity.
it is really just it is over the top. It is over the top in so many good ways. It's just like I appreciate what a game is just gleefully lurid about everything it's doing. And this is just like it's silly fun. And it's totally okay being silly fun. And I'm totally okay with it being silly fun. Where's it going? I don't know. I don't care. It's fun. It's like brain popcorn.
So I remembered that Shinji Mikami was associated with the Capcom 5 during the GameCube era. He was associated with the shooter, Piano 3, but I thought he was associated with Beautiful Joe, and he wasn't. But that's what this game sort of reminded me of, stylistically.
Yes. Beautiful Joe is another one of those games where I'm like, yeah, this is what this feels like to me. Jet Set Radio is Jet Set Radio too, but like Jet Set Radio is more coherent and intentional. And this is like zany Saturday morning cartoon stuff.
So you kind of started down this path earlier about Steam Incompatibility for Steam Deck.
Oh man. So okay. So when you're on the Steam Deck, it's got three things for games. You either get a little green check mark, which is this game is totally compatible with Steam Deck. You get a little yellow thingy, which is this is mostly compatible with Steam Deck. And then it's like the I forget what it's called. It's a circle with a diagonal line through it in gray. That's like, no, stop. And I loaded up. I've been, like I mentioned, I'm on a trip for 3 weeks, so I've been loading up a bunch of new games on Steam Deck with various levels of compatibility. And half the time, when something is incompatible, Last Epoch has a big not compatible thing on Steam Deck, and it works mostly okay. Like it's got some weirdness, and sometimes I need to use the touch screen as a mouse, and it gets confused about stuff. But I booted up MechWarrior Online.
Uh-oh.
Oh boy, that game is not compatible. And it actually is flagged as semi-compatible, I think. But like bringing up the on-screen keyboard to like turn on my mech, no, that's not compatible. And which is interesting because MechWarrior 5 actually runs perfectly fine on Steam Deck, and they're built very similarly, so it's a little surprising. But yeah, like ooh, sometimes you try to load a thing up and it's just like, nah, I'm not gonna work at all. That's fine. Or like, I don't know what your touchpad is. I don't even know what's happening there. I was like trying to like open the keyboard to type in my account, and just every button on the Steam Deck, including the directions on the sticks, was like just inserting another random letter.
Ooh.
I was like, oh wow, this is a mess. So yeah, every so often you've got something that's just like, oh boy. But it made me think about. I now want to go back and try it because I have some ideas on how the Steam Deck is mapping inputs. But it's really interesting to me how weirdly some stuff just breaks. Like Last Epoch doesn't have textures on the character create screen. Why? I don't know.
Weird.
It's just weird. That's just a weird choice. That's
Probably incompatibilities with Vulkan.
probably, but it works fine in game. Like once I actually load into the game, it looks fine. It looks like a perfectly normal game. You would have no idea there's a problem.
Yeah, my guess is there's probably a Proton pack where it's perfectly fine, but who knows what version it would be.
Yeah.
This does make me wonder if, like, the hardest part of getting Lord of the Rings Online to work on the Steam Deck might be getting through the launcher.
It is. That's what I've heard, is
Yeah.
getting through the launcher is the problem. Because one of the things that the Steam Deck does not handle well is having two different things in memory at once.
Yes. Super unhappy about that.
And like, I watched a video this week where, a Steam Deck aficionado type person was like, I wonder if Valve could give people, a break on the fees to get them to not use a launcher, or start charging extra on the fees for everyone using a launcher. Because like launchers are the bane of the existence of any game on Steam Deck. Because a lot of times you have to do a lot of weird stuff to get it to work, where you have to add both the launcher. Well, you have to add the installer and then the launcher and then the executable to Steam and run them at different times to get it all the way through.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And a lot of times, like, there's things that the community have figured out around them, but like that requires you to go crawling around in some forum threads to find them.
I mean, at least it sounds like it's in forum threads and not locked away in Discords. I'm sure it's that too.
Probably.
Steam is old enough that it has a forum, and slow enough that they haven't given it up.
It's like Steam is so weird at times because like there's this fully fleshed out chat client that I only ever use to communicate with one human being. For whatever reason, that has become the default means of communicating with Syl on the regular. Like, it's the only person I ever talk to on Steam, but I talk to Syl if not every day, at least once or twice a week.
I have one person who I talk to on Steam, and I don't know who they are.
There's so many people I have in my Steam's friend list that I have no clue who the hell they are.
Yeah.
Also,
one old WoW guildie that every once in a while when I come out of my invisible mode will always say hi. Like no one else that I ever talked to on Steam.
I have exactly one person that I have blocked on Steam. And this is going to be a blast from the past, and I don't even know if any of the 80 WoW folks will remember this person. I have Grinner blocked. Like, it's the only person I have blocked on Steam.
I remember that person.
just
That was
because
before my time.
it was an annoying rogue on the server. Yeah, I would love for games to be a little less reliant upon custom launchers because they all seem to cause problems with Steam Deck. I mean, and even I would say DRM is less of a problem, and anti-cheat is less of a problem because a lot of anti-cheats have gotten on board and created Proton versions that will run on SteamOS, but the launchers are just an issue.
Yeah. I will say one of the big things I use my Steam Deck for is streaming from my PC. I've become the bell.
It's real good. I mean, like Steam in-home streaming has gotten so much better than it used to be. And it is much easier to just play it off your PC than to juggle the limited disk space.
Yes.
Anyway, I think that's probably a show. Any final thoughts?
I will be streaming Strawberry Jam when it drops this coming Friday.
What is Strawberry Jam?
It's the biggest Celeste community collab. Supposed to be bigger than Spring Collab 2020, which was the previous super big collab everyone was playing. So Strawberry Jam's going to have like 111 new maps, I think. I will probably be streaming that on twitch.tv/Kodra22. You can come join along.
Yeah, when I see your messages come across, I try and boost them, but I oftentimes don't see them come across.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you.
Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
See you.